everybody back to the Inside Our Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, it is the season premiere of this show, season 4. We got it, season 4 of episode 1. So we got a lot of things to talk about. Of course, we got the big game going this week against Inter Miami. We're going to preview that in this episode. We're going to talk about season predictions. Of course, we're going to also talk about a little bit about the preseason, how those couple games went going into this season. So there's a lot of things to talk about just heading into this week. It should be a good one, good conversation. Obviously, we have a guest, which I will get into right in a minute. But, of course, it should be a good episode. Of course, with me, as always, is LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We just signed a DP. The CONCACAF Champions League's back. The UEFA Champions League's back. And we got one of the biggest MLS pages on our podcast right now. So things are going great right now. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy we have a guest with us.
As he looks around. But as much, this man needs an introduction, and I will give him the introduction. Of course, this man is an absolute legend, an absolute beast. This man has covered the league for however many years he has, and has great content, amazing content, just a great friend as well that I've got to know over this past couple years. And honestly, it is a pleasure, and it's a damn shame that he hasn't been on this podcast earlier, but we're glad we have him now. And obviously, without no further ado, formerly known as This Week in MLS, Eli Lesser is on the show. How you doing, man? What's up, man?
Dude, I am great. I am so excited to be back with you at matches. I know this Sunday, we will be together, and it'll be great in 121. But no, it feels great. I'm the most optimistic I've been as a Galaxy fan heading into a season for a very long time. So I think that's super fun. And, preseason is not my favorite thing in the world, just because I have a hard time really getting into preseason matches. But, it just... seeing, as you mentioned, Alex, the CONCACAF Champions Cup being back and watching those matches last night has me hyped for the season to start. I was kind of like, wait, the season just ended. I was kind of enjoying this break. But now, after seeing those matches last night, I'm like, oh my God, this is happening, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, we are excited that you are here. Of course, yeah, the season's already here. It's kind of crazy because we ended our season in October, and then it just kind of went like that. Out of nowhere. It's pretty crazy to think about. But of course, we're heading into week 1. It's a pretty big deal. And honestly, I'm hyped up too. Obviously, we got some signings going in, and especially one today, which we'll get into later on in the episode. But we got one today. Of course, we had Peck that we announced a couple weeks ago, and things like that. But yeah, I'm optimistic about this season, at least through some aspects of it. But of course, we'll talk about those season predictions at the end of the episode. But before we get into all that good stuff going into this week, let's just talk a little bit about preseason. I know you said that you hadn't really watched a lot of the preseason games, which I get it. It's, kind of hard to watch it, especially because it's nothing you're playing for. It's just these guys trying to get in shape. But of course, we did have 2 preseason games. The first one being against NYCFC. We ended up tying 2-2 for that one. Of course, this whole preseason just in general has been kind of weird because you see some of the issues that the Galaxy have had last year, and we haven't seen everybody yet. Some guys are getting back from injury. Some guys haven't had many minutes. But of course, these past 2 games, starting with the NYCFC game, we got to see some more of those players, some more minutes. So I'll start off with Alex here first. How'd you feel about that first game against NYCFC, that 2-2 draw?
It was a good game. We started off with mostly G2. We went down 2-0 early, but it's still good to see the Galaxy still have that fight from last season. Remember last year, we came back down from 3-1 a lot of times. We came back from down 2-0 sometimes. We came back from down a goal one time to get a draw. So we still have that fight in us, which is really good. And we came back to tie 2-2. Some second players came in the second half, more first-team players. We made that comeback, and it was really good. I was happy to see that we came back in that game, and we got one of our few results of the preseason. So that was a good stepping point for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, you like to see the resilience from the Galaxy, something that, we didn't really see that much last season, but you got to see it in this game, and that's pretty good to see. I forgot who scored in this game for that 2-2 draw. I think Miguel Berry scored one, right? Or was it, right?
It was
Miguel
too.
And Harbor Miller scored those 2 goals. So, yeah, they ended up getting their goals, which Harbor Miller also getting a homegrown contract for the Galaxy, which is pretty big news as well. for the academy and stuff like that. So yeah, 2-2 draw. Eli, I don't know if you got to see that game, but of course, did you have any opinions about that game against New York?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to, get a result because the preseason hasn't really been about results, but, it gets us feeling a bit better in general. And, just there's a couple players that I've noticed this preseason that have impressed me in the few moments that I have caught. And, Diego Fagundes is one of those guys where it's like he came into our squad at the end of last season and, he brings great experience, but he didn't quite have a shining moment yet for us. And I feel like this preseason he's kind of getting back into like what he was for Austin. And then, Tucker Lepley has been such an amazing revelation, just a guy that really feels like he came out of nowhere for us. And I don't know if he's going to play a lot this season, but, just have it, bringing in a guy like him and, I like stories of guys that bet on themselves, and he is one of those guys. And, him coming into the squad and, giving maximum effort and, really playing for a spot, that's something that intrigues me into preseason. And, hopefully he could, get some playing time. But, those are two guys that I've just noticed this entire preseason as a whole. And not necessarily specific about that match, but then also Miguel Berry, he struggled last year. He only had, I believe, like 1 goal in 20 appearances. So I think it's great for him, to get scoring early for us because we need our strikers to score goals. That has been a big issue with us, since Chicharito's gone down with that injury. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And Tucker Lepley, I've actually been pretty high on him this preseason. And like you said, like a guy who bet on himself, right? Because I think this was someone had asked him that I think he had a year left for college, at least for UCLA. And, they had asked him, it's like, hey, like, why don't you just stay 1 more year at UCLA? And he was like, hey, like, I had the opportunity to go now if I wanted to. Like, he felt like he was ready. So, and he's shown some pretty good glimpses. And I think that's a guy who this preseason who has been, who's caught my attention. And I think, yeah, like he could possibly get that spot. We'll see what happens with him if he gets G2 time or if he's on the bench for the first team. But yeah, that's a guy who has been impressive. And same thing with Diego Fagundes. He's been great for this preseason as well. Like I think, he's going to have a pretty big role, especially I know we got Peck and we got, Paint still now in for your starters, but Fagundes coming off the bench is not a bad option at all, and he's been playing good. So yeah, I really like that as well. Alex, did you have any players that you want to talk about? For that game?
Well, I have a negative one. So we thought Chris Mavinga's kicking the air against Charlotte and totally missing the ball was going to be the worst goal given up in preseason. But then against New York City FC, Eric Zavaleta somehow one-upped that by ducking underneath the ball when it came at him. And then NYCFC scored a really easy goal. I don't know what Eric Zavaleta was doing. That was just horrible. If we had the footage, I think we would all be laughing at it right now. I don't know if you guys remember, but Eric Zavaleta, the 2 Toronto guys this preseason, oh my God, that was even worse than Mavinga's, what he gave up, and that was just really, really bad to see. Even if it's just preseason, you cannot do that in any sort of game. I don't care where you are.
The tough thing about Zavaleta is, we know for reasons necessarily outside of soccer, he's probably going to stay on the squad no matter what.
Yep.
But, we just need to not have the problem we had last year where we have to play our 4th, 5th, 6th center backs regularly. If we could just avoid that problem, then we'll avoid Zavaleta and we'll just have to, it's fine if he's, the 6th guy on the roster. We just need to not have to get to that point again, which was our biggest issue last year, honestly.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And it doesn't help already that Jalen Neal's down. So we're already going to have to go through the bottom of those lists. But hopefully we don't get to the point where we need Zavaleta. But yeah, I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, we all know our opinions on Zavaleta. I don't really think we need to go any further with him. But,
Did you guys see it, though, the play? Did you guys see the play that I was talking about?
Yes, I have seen the play. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Mavinga one before that was honestly pretty bad. I didn't think that was going to get any worse. So, yeah, I mean, of course, defense is a pretty big, concern going into the season. We've actually already talked about it, multiple podcasts for the preseason. But, yeah, I mean, defense has got to figure something out. Of course, yeah. So that was the NYCFC game. If anybody had any points about that game or any other, thoughts. No? All right, then. Of course, so that was the 2-2 game before. And then in the last preseason game, we had a 2-0 win against the New York Red Bulls. So we faced the other New York team that for our last preseason game, which was, good to see that we got a clean sheet finally in this preseason. I mean, we got scored on 11 times this preseason. So it was good to see a 0 on the other side. And it was also good to see a 2-0. We got to see goals from Ricky Puig. We also got to see a goal from I forget the other goal too. I think it was outed for that one. I think he scored that in that game. So yeah, so we got to see some starters score. We got to see a clean sheet. And of course we got to see players get their minutes and things like that. So that was a game where everybody wanted to see, because it's like, okay, this is probably the closest we're going to get to going into the season. So of course we saw some good things in that game. So Alex, how'd you feel about that game against New York?
Yeah, obviously, by far the best preseason game we had. You said it yourself. We kept a clean sheet against what most importantly was a first team. The Red Bulls played most of their first team starters. The Galaxy played a majority of their first team starters, even though there's still obviously a significant amount of guys missing. But with what they had right now, that was mostly their first team. So the fact that we actually played against the first team this time for pretty much 90 minutes and did really well, I think is a really good thing. The defense looked good. The midfield looked pretty good. Even the offense. I think the offense could have scored some more, but still they put up 2 goals, which is not bad, but I still think they could have taken more chances. But overall, I think that was a really good game and a good way to close out the preseason after not winning a game mostly. And there's not a better time to win it than when you're playing most of your first teams most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Eli, you were actually at Coachella for the last game. I know you were also doing other content stuff, but did you get a chance to see the game? What were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, it was great. I actually was able to catch the Ricky Puig penalty, which was great. And that gives me a bit more hope for our penalty takers this year, because we've been notoriously bad and we haven't quite figured out who's going to be that guy that steps up every single time. So if Ricky gets that confidence to be the guy again, that would be great. But overall, as you mentioned, it's important to, it's a great win when you win with your first teams, obviously, but it's also, incredible to end your preseason on a very positive note. And I think that's the best thing about that result is, you're coming in with winning morale, and you have a big match this weekend, whether we want to say Inter Miami is a quality opponent or not. It's still a big match, and it's exactly what this team needed heading into the season.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, you always want to end on a high note for your preseason, and yeah, 2-0 is always going to be great. And like I said, you got goals from your starters, so you got to see good things from this team. Of course, there were still some questions because you didn't see all of your starters in there. Of course, I think Joveljic got some minutes in there. I don't think he played the whole game either. I think he played only the first half, if I remember. So it's like, yeah, there's still some questions in there with regards to who's going to be the starting lineup going into Miami later this week. But at least in that game, you actually got to see, the closest that you were going to be able to see for that game. Alex, did you have any players that you wanted to talk about for that game that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think going into the season right now, we should be really confident in our wingers right now. Obviously, you got the 2 DP wingers now. We got to wait and see what they do. But having Fagundes, who looks in shape right now, as depth and Johnny Perez as a 4th option, it really can't get much better than that. Every time Perez has played for the Galaxy, he's always looked really good. And this Red Bull game was another example of that, of him, continuing to fight on the play, winning a penalty for us, and then having an absolutely perfect cross to Joveljic right on the head, which he somehow misses from like the 60-yard box, which was a really bad miss for him. But still, our winger depth right now looks extremely good and extremely promising. And the fact that our defense kept a clean sheet is also really good against the first team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've said that about the wingers too. It's like we've been getting a lot of production out of them. Even if we haven't seen Peck and Payne still yet, we've been seeing a lot of good production from the wingers, whether it's the young guys, whether it's guys like Fagundes. Yeah, I mean that's a place where I really feel confident in right now. But of course that's good to see as well. And Johnny Perez, I mean, we thought we weren't going to see him in preseason. He kind of came in late because I think he was dealing with injuries. And yeah, I mean, he's been playing great as well. Hopefully he gets more. I hope we get more Johnny Perez minutes this year, because that's a guy who I really want to see play. I know it's going to be tough considering who we brought in, but I just really hope we get to see him, whether it's Leagues Cup or U.S. Open Cup, if we play that, because obviously that's up in the air right now. But we'll see what happens. But of course, Johnny Perez, that's somebody who I want to see get some minutes in there. I know you. I know you already talked about some guys like Tucker Lepley in this preseason, but any other young guys who maybe like stood out to you in this one, Eli, or like anybody in general?
Not quite yet. But Johnny Perez is someone who I just really want to keep seeing get some run, because it felt like every time we got glimpses of him last year, he was really good, and he played at a first team level, that's for sure. And I think being fourth on the winger depth chart isn't a bad spot for him right now. He will get more run this year probably than he did last year. And I really hope that he could be kind of like the breakout player for the Galaxy this year. It's really just a matter of, if he's going to get the minutes to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's going to be tough considering we got our two guys now in that position locked up. But, if whenever the time comes in other competitions or anything like that, like I really do hope he gets those minutes, because I've always been that guy who's just says like he needs the minutes. If he gets the minutes, he's going to do great and do some really good things for us. And he has, like when you saw the I believe it was the Austin game last year, the one that like got delayed because of the weather, like you saw the cross that he gave to tie that game up. It's like he can come in those moments. You even saw him against Chivas in the Leagues Cup for the Leagues Cup showcase a couple years ago. Like you see him get these moments, and it's like, and that was a really good goal too. So it's like you see those moments, and you're like, yeah, like we just need to give him the minutes, and I think he'll do good. But of course, we'll just see how they distribute those minutes for Johnny. But yeah, I mean, a lot of good young guys who showed out in this one, in this preseason. A lot of good players as well. And
I have one more thing to say.
Oh yeah, Go ahead.
Well, once you're done, I can say it. You can go ahead and finish. But I have one more thing to add for just kind of the preseason in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead. You can go for it.
All right, for sure. So we really got to credit Will Kuntz for the Edwin Cedillo trade. Like that for me is such a good trade for us, because you understand Gaston Brugman's hurt. He's going to take time to come back. He's still getting fit. What do? You trade $300K for a guy who came out of a great academy in FC Dallas, started every single match in 2022 for FC Dallas for a winning team, comes in preseason, looks really good, and now you feel very confident going into the regular season thinking you can give Gaston Brugman, who is a very important player for the Galaxy, some time because you brought in this really good MLS caliber player for depth. And that's what I love about Will Kuntz that Greg Van did not do. He's bringing in MLS caliber players for depth, and I feel so confident about Edwin Cedillo right now. Like, it's really good. We got him from that trade, and we need to make more trades like that, because I'm feeling very good about that spot right now, and I just think we need to acknowledge how good that trade was for us and can continue to be if he develops right.
And I think that trade, I think of, the John Nelson trade. Like, these are good.
That was a free agent
players.
signing, I agree.
Yeah, free agent signing. Like, these are players that we bring in as our backups, but they could be starting caliber players. Like they can go in for the spot starts, and I'm very impressed by a lot of the moves that we've been making, whether they're the bigger ones or the smaller ones. I just think every move feels very calculated by Will Kuntz, and I've never trusted a man more to run this team. And it's very funny. I actually saw him at Coachella, and I was just in awe by him. I was too scared to go up and talk to him, so I didn't. But I was sitting down at a bench, and he walked by me, and I was just like that. I don't get starstruck by many people, but for some reason, Will Kuntz is like, that's the guy that got me like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. I'm frozen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you see what he's done so far. You see at the winger position, he brought in Diego Fagundes, and he's prioritizing the development of Johnny Perez. He brings in Cedillo. He brings in Johnny Nelson, like you said, who I think is a good player. He brings in John McCarthy, who's a good MLS veteran. The only issue I think we really have depth at a position of that we need to address is the center backs, and that's not even Will Kuntz's fault. That's Greg Vanny's fault, because he felt favoritism towards his Toronto FC players.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. For sure. Yeah, the Toronto FC and the nephew, right? So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Will Kuntz is just the guy. He seems like the guy. You think he's the guy, Eli, to really, like, turn this team around? Like, do you really think that he can do it?
He's definitely the guy, but I wouldn't expect results this year per se. Hopefully we make the playoffs this year, but I wouldn't go into this year expecting us to win MLS Cup because we got Will Kuntz. I think we're building towards something better, and I think this year, I think it'd be, I maybe overrated them in my preseason predictions by putting them fourth, but if we could get into a playoff spot, not a wild card spot, but an actual playoff spot, that's a successful first season. And I think, you look at what goes well and what doesn't position wise this year, and you address those needs heading into next season. And, I think, 2025, that is our year.
Exactly.
Like, that could be the year.
Exactly. I agree. It's a 2 to 3 year thing for me. Like, this year's kind of the transition year. The next year you kind of add some more pieces and try to finalize it, get them a full year. Then 2025, 2024 is like or 2026 is the year you really start to take off and see the turnaround we've tried to make. And I do agree with that.
Imagine Galaxy wins MLS Cup and then USMNT wins at SoFi within a month. That would be crazy.
That would be great
For the World
yeah.
Cup.
That'd be crazy. Yeah.
2026.
That would-
crazy.
I would be there.
That would be pretty
I will be
crazy.
there no
But
matter what.
actually, insert the Eli meme. I'll be there no matter what. I actually did want to talk about another half of the Galaxy process, which is Greg Vanney, of course. Obviously, I believe this is his last year under his contract with the Galaxy. Of course, there's a lot of things that needs to happen for Greg Vanney. Obviously, you agree that he would be in the hot seat, you would say, right?
Yeah, he's in the hot seat,
yeah.
but I haven't been so much on the hardcore Vanny out train as a lot of people, because I think, I personally, except for Bruce Arena, who's my one exception, I'm not a big fan of when head coaches are also general managers, and they just have too much on their plate, and I think that was a problem with Vanny over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping that there's still a little bit of that Toronto magic left in him as a coach. But I'm not saying that he's like this great coach or anything still, but I think you let this year play out, and if it's really bad, very quickly you let him go. But if this is his last year on his contract, he just let this contract run out at this point, especially if this is a transitional year. I'm not really on the let's fire him now type of train. I think let him adapt to this new situation and see how he handles it for the first few months of the season. And that's how I feel about, sorry to get off topic, but Dejan Joveljic as well. It's like, let him adapt to these new wingers in this system. And, if he's really not the guy by this summer, then you get someone else. But that's kind of just how I feel about Vanny. And maybe I'm being too nice on him. But I still feel like there's that bit of, 2017 MLS, because that was like, that Toronto team, in my opinion, aside from the Galaxy dynasty, is the greatest MLS team of all time. And I just still feel like there could still be something there. It's just, now that we have the right pieces, for the most part, like we have 99% of the right pieces. And now that we have those, we, see what Vanny can do.
Right. Which we agree, actually. We've been saying on this podcast, like a lot of things about Vanny. Like, we're not a pro Vanny guy, but there's obviously situations that have happened where we're like, okay, we can give him a little bit of slack, or not slack, but at least a little bit of leeway of like why this happened, right? And I definitely, and you brought up Dejan Joveljic, like I agree with that. Like, I think like whenever like Greg Vanny came in and he took over with Chicharito, like he set up a really good game plan for Chicharito. He kind of revived Chicharito's career at that point. And with him, without being the GM this season, and him even admitting the fact that it was too much on his plate and things like that, I feel like, I'm not saying Dejan's going to be like amazing, but I feel like there could be something for Dejan if Vanny's just focused on the coaching. And so, like, I agree with that point. It's like if Vanny just focuses on the coaching, I think he can do good. But if it's bad, like at this point, like, boy, like what other excuses can Vanny come up with this? Like, I don't think, like, he's definitely in the hot seat for sure. And like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I hope he does good, but we'll just see how that plays out with him this year.
Sure. Oh yeah, own Toronto players I wanted to sign are bad. Whose fault is that?
Yeah, I mean, GM Vanny wasn't the best, and that's a hard thing to do. Like in general, like in any sport, like I always say, in any sport, it's hard to do a GM head coaching role. Like it's very tough for anybody to do that. And like Bruce Arena was one of those rare guys who was able to do that. It's like, so I don't know. Like to me, I'm glad he admitted that it was too much on his plate. But yeah, now everything is on you. If the results are still bad, then we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, I mean, Vanny's an interesting point going into the season for sure. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit some Galaxy news. Of course, there was a few signings actually that happened. Of course, we did have a couple homegrown signings, like I mentioned earlier. Harper Miller got a homegrown signing. Ruben Ramos got a homegrown signing. 2 academy kids. That's a pretty big deal because a lot of people, especially Galaxy fans, are like, like where are the young guys? Where are the young kids that we need that this team needs? Like we need to go all young or whatever, right? And we signed 2 young guys into the team. So Eli, I just want to ask you, seeing 2 homegrown signings, how do you feel about that? Like how do you feel about those 2 signings?
Yeah, I feel like since the beginning of time almost, the Galaxy have struggled to ingrain their homegrowns into their squads unless they're him, unless they're, Julian Araujo. And it's been hard for, we have seen a hard pathway from, the academies to the pro for Galaxy guys. And, that's why so many players left the academy before even signing first team contracts. So it's great to, secure those guys and hopefully give them some run. If not, worst case scenario is they're starting a lot for the MLS Next Pro team. But it's promising. Do I think any of those guys are really going to make an impact this season? No. But you can't complain about seeing a local kid get their dreams. Them working hard to make their dreams come true and it happening, and that's signing a first their homegrown contract. That's a first step.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Like, of course, and I think that's only been the issue. Like, I think the Galaxy have the talent within the academies. It's just a matter of producing him and integrating him into the first team, because it's like we've seen a couple of guys, like you mentioned, Julian Araujo. Obviously Jalen Neal is one of those guys as well. Once he gets healthy, is another kid from the academy going into the first team. So it's like, like, I hope like they just do well with these kids and develop them for the future and for their careers. But yeah, I mean it's interesting that we got to see some two young guys get signed in there. Alex, did you have any thoughts about that, about those two signings?
No, I mean, pretty much similar points. Wilkins has mentioned before that it is a priority to develop the academy and get some of those kids onto the first team and try to have them as assets. And I think that's a really good thing. And if it starts here, that's a good place to start with.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And also Harbor Miller was one of those guys who actually did have like had his name called out in the preseason a lot this year. So, let's see what he can do. I didn't really see much of Ruben Ramos. I don't know if he actually even played this preseason. I don't recall, at least, but I think it's really good that we got to see some two young, local signings for the team. But of course,
go ahead. Harbor Miller was one of the best players on the LA Galaxy's U17 MLS Next Pro, not MLS Next Pro, but just MLS Next team that won the MLS Next U17 Cup. So that was a really big achievement, not only for just him, but also for the entire organization. He was one of the key pieces to that team. So if he can bring that sort of winning mentality over here, that would be really good for us.
Definitely, and it's very interesting how a lot of analysts and stuff said that was a fluke for us to win that tournament, but I don't believe there's flukes in tournaments like that. And like, I definitely, agree with you on that. Hopefully that winning mentality can translate, and that's what it is to be a Galaxy player in the first place. You have that, you're supposed to have that winning mentality. That's who we are as a club, and that's where we want to get back to. So that's super cool, at least, to bring in that specific player.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I mean, any sort of success is always going to be good, no matter what. Like, yeah, like I found that kind of weird how there were some people that said like, hey, that was just like a fluke or whatever. It's
Who said that, actually? I totally missed that. Who said that?
So I don't remember where it was, but it was on MLSsoccer.com or something. They ranked academies, and ours was like 20th out of 29th, and there was in the blurb, it was like, well, they won this tournament, but it was such a fluke. I was like,
okay.
I mean, how are we going to win like a prestigious MLS Next youth tournament and you put us in 20th? Like, and we have Jalen Neal starting for the first team. So it's like, I don't know. But it might have been MLSsoccer.com or it might have been The Athletic, but it was like one of the big soccer websites. Pretty sure it was MLS itself that ranked academies and had that little blurb about us. That's where I remember reading that, at least.
Yeah.
I guess we had a good motivational speaker then.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess we did. But I was also going to say, like, even if you're able to beat like other academies, like Dallas, of course, who has one of the best academies in MLS, and like Philadelphia and those like teams that have really good academies, like I think like if you're able to be the best and even over them, it's like that's a good thing. It's like that shouldn't be a fluke. Like that's really just like all the hard work that the organization put within that youth squad. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like I don't know. Like it really did not make sense for me for that as well. It's just like, it doesn't seem like a fluke. I don't think winning any championship is a fluke. You don't get lucky winning championships. Like that's just not a thing. You know what I mean? So, there's hard work that goes into that. But anyways, let's get into the signing that happened today, or at least when we're recording, the one that happened today. Eli, you seem excited, which I'll get into with you and ask you. But of course, Joseph Painstill is officially a G. He gets signed over from Genk, gets a 4 million, or not 4 million, 4 year contract with the Galaxy through 2027. He's a DP. We finally lock up our DPs. The final spot is cleared. Of course, Eli, since you were excited, how do you feel, man? How do you feel about the signing?
Well, obviously, I'm a tad excited potentially, but no, like this is the type of signing that really elevates the level of play in MLS as a whole, which is why I'm excited that an MLS team is able to bring in a guy like him. But specifically, the Galaxy bringing him in is absolutely fantastic because it shows a different direction. It shows us trying to do something different from what we are used to. And that, will hopefully help us, getting Panso, who's 26 years old. I keep saying this a lot to people, but 17 goals and 14 assists last season in the Belgian league, that's no joke. And that's a great league as well. So getting him at the age he honestly, like, I don't want to keep, comparing, Will Kuntz's moves to what he's done with LAFC. But, this is I believe Panso's going to be our Denny Bouanga in a way, where same type of level, same type of age profile. And I think he might even be better. We'll have to wait and see on that. But, this is a big deal for the Galaxy and for the league as a whole. And, I love when teams drop bags on these 26-year-olds. And MLS in general is at a weird space right now, or just the European transfer markets in a weird space where there's a lot of players who are very good, but they might not have necessarily the name value to make it, let's say, to the Prem. But they're really quality players, and, they wouldn't get the certain pay, or they wouldn't get the salary that they want from a Premier League club. And I think Panso's in that type of situation where it's like, hey, MLS can offer him the salary he wants and the role he wants, not just, one or the other or neither. And so I think that's super cool. And he is a game-changing signing for the league, and Gabriel Peck as well. But Panso, for me, I think, he's a guy that I think is more of a guaranteed success in a way. And I hope I don't, I hope I don't eat my words on that, but, bringing in a guy of his profile is pretty damn incredible.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Alex, your thoughts about the signing?
Yeah, I see what Eli's saying. I do agree to a certain extent. He kind of does remind me of Denis Bouanga a lot. I kind of looked at it when Denis Bouanga first came into MLS. They were valued around the exact same price. I think they weigh about the same amount too. They both played in Europe. They both had successes in good leagues. I think Denis Bouanga's league was a little bit better in League One towards the bottom of it. But I think Payne still played in better competitions like the UEFA Europa League and the UEFA Champions League, so you can kind of balance it out there. But their player dynamics look really similar too. You see, like, they're a winger, but they're also kind of a center forward. They play more of that role. They're these big, powerful guys. They're very quick. They're very goal deadly. I can definitely see the comparisons there. I think he's a good signing. I'm very excited for it. I hope he can turn out really well for us. We talked about the motivation factor. I hope he's happy to be here. Eli said it too, and that does give me confidence. Like, why wouldn't he be happy to be here if he's getting the role and getting the salary? He should be really happy here. MLS is a really good upcoming league, so I think he's going to have a really good role on this team, and I'm really excited to see him play. I think he has a lot of upside to him. I think it's a good move by Will Kuntz. It's the type of DPs we've been wanting to see for a while. These three DPs I think are really good, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it overall.
Yeah, and speaking of Bouanga, just one last thing about Bouanga. Just think about how much of a star Bouanga has become in this league. He is considered one of the biggest names in the league now.
Yeah.
And I think Panso is going to be that next guy. And it's great how it's coming from our club and not their club. That's
There's
amazing.
There.
And
There really is. There could be comparisons.
And I think, come, the end of this year, next season, Painso, maybe Golden Boot, but, he's going to be, one of the faces of the league, hopefully. And, we already have one with Ricky Puig. So, the more of those we could have and they're actual quality players producing and contributing to winning soccer, then, the better, obviously.
Here, I'll say one more thing, though. So, Eli, what do you think of Gabriel Peck? Like, what do you think of that signing overall? Like, me and Eric are pretty high on it. We think he's a good player, but what do you think of Gabriel Peck and how he's going to be?
Gabriel Peck, I think he's going to be great. Every highlight reel I've seen of him has been fantastic. I saw what he was doing with the Olympic squad. But, when you do bring in a young and unproven guy, they could be very hit or miss in MLS with wingers. And, I'd like to think that Will Kuntz, is cooking with this one. And I have high expectations. But we also know what it's like for the Galaxy to bring in a young DP winger and have that go really, really bad. And I don't think Peck can be a Cabral bad. But, it's just I'm a little I'm cautiously optimistic about Peck because he seems like he could be the guy. It just he's less proven than Painsil. Painsil, you see the numbers, that he's done it at these bigger leagues, and that's why I'm more excited about that one specifically. But Peck might have a higher ceiling. It's just he's a more of a question mark to me, and maybe I'll be wrong and Peck is like the GOAT of MLS and Painsil's the flop. But it's easy to just show me the numbers and what league they played in, and for me to base a stronger or to have more excitement about one player than another. And I think Peck can be really great. Like I said, there was a couple clips that went viral in the Galaxy spaces of him with Brazil, and he looks incredible. I'm just gonna believe it when I see it more with him.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. But you talked about unproven. Well, I think last season, Gabriel Peck is coming off his breakout season, having 14 goals and 4 assists in the Brazilian Serie A, which we acknowledge the Belgian league is a really strong league. The Brazilian league is also a really strong league. It's one of the hardest leagues in the world outside of Europe. And, 14
Definitely
goals
tough.
and 4 assists. Yeah, definitely tough. Outside of Vasco, Vasco is not a really good team either. So he was doing that in a league with better defending, with teammates that might not be as good as someone like Ricky Puig, who's one of the best passers in the league, Gaston Brugman, who's a really good passer in himself. So, if he can go against MLS level defensive with elite passers like Puig and Brugman, I think Gabriel Peck can also be, just a really, really good signing.
Oh yeah, and I believe that he can, and I have seen those as well. The numbers, and as I mentioned with the clips and stuff, it's just he's also just very young, and it might be a big adjustment for him to come to America, and it's a different stage, whether it's a better or worse stage than Brazil. It certainly is different. But I do believe that Peck will be a great player for us. I'm just with Painsil, it's like I know that he's going to be great. Like it's just like I said, it's just more of a guarantee. But Peck definitely has a higher ceiling for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree on both those points. I mean, when you look at Painsil, obviously 26, has had the experience, has played for a while now, so it's like, and also plays for the Ghana national team, so it's like he's had his his moments and stuff like that, right? Like he's played in big tournaments, not only just club, also in the national team level. I mean, he just played in AFCON not too long ago, so it's like Painsil, like I agree, it's probably just more like he's there, maybe even you can say closer to his prime because he is, 26. That's around the time where people get into their prime. So it's like, you're getting someone in their prime, and then you're right. It's like Peck is just like, yes, you've seen a lot of great things, has had a great season last year with Vasco, but it's like, but you still need to see more because he's so young and and he has that promise. The ceiling is there definitely for him for sure. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think both of these signings are really good. And another thing I wanted to say, Eli, because we've also had this discussion when it came to our DPs, was we thought we were going to get one winger DP and then possibly one striker DP. Obviously, they went with two wingers. Do you feel like the two winger DP was the right choice for the Galaxy?
I see why we went for it, and I actually am pretty fine with it. I was hoping that we would get like a young not, I guess, unproven because Peck has proven himself to an extent, but, we get like a younger winger and then a star striker, like a striker that everyone knows. I thought big for that name. But, I do see it if the team, which they seem to, really believes in Dejan and his ability to be a starting striker in MLS, then it makes sense to just provide him with, playmaker after playmaker after playmaker. And what I've seen from Peck and Painsil as well is, they create their own shot just as well as they can, pass and, create for others. So that's very promising. I'm just glad that we filled those spots before the season started to where we will get a full season. It's so much harder to integrate a new DP in the middle of the season, and I'm very glad that the Galaxy got both of these moves done, and they might not play Sunday, we'll see, to be determined, but at least we have them already, and they'll be out there soon and be playing the majority of the season. So that's great. And I kind of trust Will Kuntz, so I'm on that train where it's like, if he felt that was the best move for us, then that was the best move for us in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I mean, obviously, Dejan going into the season is a huge question mark because, obviously we talked about it a lot on this podcast was, like we've seen Dejan have the greatness, right? We've seen him coming off the bench. He's been fantastic. But then just as a starter is just not there. And we haven't necessarily seen that. And I mean, I get it because there's obviously some circumstances. I don't think Dejan last season was prepared to be the starter because obviously Chicharito was the starter. And so obviously him go down and things like that. I don't think Dejan was necessarily ready. I also kind of felt like that chip on his shoulder wasn't necessarily there either last season. So, I mean, but still, though, it's like you can't deny the fact that last season wasn't good for Dejan. And there's just a lot of question marks about that. Like, I'm glad that, like, they're confident in him. I'm glad they're giving him another opportunity. But it's just a matter of if we don't get that production out of Dejan, like, how is this going to go for the offense in general? And last year we did get to see, the offense move a little bit, like move without, a set striker. Obviously, Tyler Boyd had a crazy season. Even, Costa had a, good season last year. So it's like the offense was able to have some production, but if you don't have production from your 9, that's just like a big no for me. Or it's like, that's just not good to see.
Yeah, so I have one thing to add, though. Like, do you think we're going to bring in a striker before April or in the summer window, or do you think we really just believe in Joveljic and Miguel Berry? Because me, personally, I think before the April window closes, the last thing I think we need to bring in is a veteran striker on a TAM deal. Someone like a Christian Ramirez or an Arango when he first came to LAFC, he was on that deal. Someone like that who, yeah, it's not like a Cucho Hernandez or a prime Rui Diaz, but it's still a good option to have up there for sure. A veteran, somebody like that.
Yeah, I kind of just see us more of testing Joveljic till the summer, and then, bringing in a guy that could potentially become a DP in the future in the summer, bring in the Zlatan contract where he's a TAM player for a year or whatever, and then, have his, contract rise up to a DP level. I think that's more the route the Galaxy would take, but then it's like, what's going to happen to one of the 3 DPs that we currently have if they're all balling? So that's, a question for a later time. But I definitely see the Galaxy trying to ride out Joveljic until the summer. Whether or not that's a great idea or not. I mean, you brought up Christian Ramirez. I don't think Columbus would want to get rid of him, but he'd be great, to bring in.
No, I'm just talking about the level of player, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Not the player.
No, I know. I'm just saying, yeah. I'm agreeing with you where it's like a player like that would be, unreal for us to bring in, and I would feel super confident about us making the playoffs with that. But I just gotta hope that 2022 super sub Dejan is gonna be starter 2024 Dejan, and
hope so, yeah.
We could just go from there. And I think the biggest weakness with him was he doesn't do the little things that Chicharito did, and I just hope that he will start to gain those things with more experience. And I think he just needs more experience in that way.
That's very
good. Yeah, I agree with that as well. But yeah, I mean, let's just hope for the best for Dejan, because obviously I like Dejan. I think everybody's behind him, but I just feel like the minute we don't see that production, that's where everybody's going to think it's a big problem. Obviously, if we're winning games, like I guess that's all that matters really. Like if we're winning games, even if Dejan doesn't have like a ton of production, like I think that's all that matters. But still, though, we want to see some production in that level, and especially from Dejan, because it's there. Like, it's there for him. Like, he can be that guy. It's just we haven't seen that from him yet, and we're just hoping he is going to be that guy going into this season.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but anyways, yeah. Anyways, I know we kind of went off a lot of things. We were talking about the Paint still signing, and then we kind of end up on Dejan at the end of it. But yeah, I think we could actually move into to our preview against Miami. So, are you guys ready to talk about Miami going into this week?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about Miami. Of course, that's going to be the home opener at home, Dignity Health Sports Park. It should be a party, considering not only just the fact that Messi's going to be there, but also a bunch of other stuff is going to happen there. DJs and music, and just the whole vibes are going to be there, right? For this game, it's going to be a big thing going into open the season. But yeah, I mean, obviously Inter Miami, another team who hasn't really looked that great in the preseason. Honestly, has had some things happen in the preseason. I mean, obviously China did not like Messi anymore at one point. Like, that was a big thing going into their preseason. But yeah, of course, Miami, you can say, are the new darlings for the league because they have Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, all those guys, right? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting going up against this team and see what they're capable of. But Eli, I guess we'll start off with you here. How do you feel about going up against Inter Miami? How do you think this will go for the Galaxy?
I feel really good. I am appalled by what I've seen from Inter Miami this preseason. Yes, it's preseason, but just the whole idea of what they've done this preseason has been really awful for them, the league, and everything as a whole. And it's really bothered me, but it's also got me a lot of views. But you know, it's a very, you know, weird situation, and I just already feel like this team is failing, which is why, you know, I predicted them to miss the playoffs, which was like my spicy take of my MLS preseason predictions. But I don't think this Inter Miami team is ready yet, and it's fun. It's ironic given they've probably played more matches than anyone else has heading into opening weekend. But it's, you know, nothing that I've seen from them has shown me that they are a great team, unless, you know, Suarez is secretly just hiding all of his energy, and they're all just like actually, you know, they're all of a sudden going to just turn on a switch and they're going to be amazing again. Just what I've seen from this Inter Miami club is not, you know, quality enough for MLS, and it's embarrassing the league as a whole. So I'm hoping that, you know, we get one more week of that version of Miami, and, you know, hope and pray that, you know, tonight they're about to play in, you know, 30 minutes when this is recording, and, you know, hopefully I see something tonight where I'm like, yeah, Inter Miami's still not it, and hopefully we could, you know, take advantage of that. And they might even be tired from, you know, playing a Wednesday night already and having a 2-match week. But I feel pretty good. I don't know who's going to play for us. We don't know who of the new DPs, are, if any, are going to be playing or not. But, you know, as we mentioned with that preseason match against the Red Bulls, at least we're coming in with winning momentum and feeling pretty good about ourselves. And, you know, it will be in front of the home crowd, a packed crowd. It's going to be a sellout. So I'm hoping that could also play a factor as well.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, your thoughts about going into Miami?
Yeah, so I'm not on the same boat as Eli, actually. I am not very confident going into this game because, look, like, yes, Miami has had a bad preseason. Yes, they had to travel everywhere. They've had some bad moments, but let's be honest. Last time Inter Miami was fully healthy was in the Leagues Cup. And what did they do in the Leagues Cup and a little bit after that? They went into Philadelphia, who was one of the best home teams in the league. They beat the shit out of them. They went into LAFC, who is one of the best home teams in the league. Shortly after the Leagues Cup, they beat the shit out of them. And this is a fully healthy Miami team now. Like, I know they did the preseason tour. They lost a couple of games, but now it's the regular season. It's for real now. We're going to see them in about 30 minutes. You know, we'll see how they look, what they do. But I still really believe in this Miami team. When you have the greatest player of all time, that is Lionel Messi, not a debate. Like, I just think they're going to figure it out. He's not going to let him fall under the water. This is not Insigne, Bernardeschi, Toronto FC. This is Messi. This is a whole nother level here, and he's going to keep him afloat. I think it's going to be a crazy environment for a new team coming together like the Galaxy. It's going to be chaotic. There's going to be weird pieces. We don't know how they're going to line up. I just don't think the Galaxy are the ones who are ready for this game. And if they drop week 1, like I said on my story a few days ago, this is kind of a throwaway game. It doesn't really matter too much because it's 1 out of 34 and we're not really fully together at the moment. But I can't see the Galaxy doing well in this game, especially with what I've seen against Miami when they're going against fully healthy teams and when they're fully healthy as a whole.
Yeah, well, I do think Busquets might be out. I'm not sure. I know he suffered a little something, but either way, you know, I agree with you about Messi, and he's not going to let this team just like completely falter. And I believe in his abilities. I'm just worried about the team around him, but also, you know, on the other side of things, you know, I know this isn't El Tráfico, but the Galaxy always find a way to show up for that. And I'm wondering if, you know, this is a big enough game for them to have that same, you know, energy that they have in an El Tráfico, where they out of nowhere, you know, when they're completely unfavored, can pull a result out. Ethan Zubak scores a goal and, you know, we win or whatever. So it's, you know, one of those.
Mavinga scores this week.
Dude, I mean, it'd be
Mavinga dunked
crazy.
on Messi. Imagine that. Imagine a Mavinga poster on Messi.
Him.
Oh my god. Oh my
Dude,
god.
that would be
That would be the funniest shit.
That would be so fucking hilarious. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I agree with both of you guys. I feel like, yeah, you just can't discount Messi. Like, this is the GOAT we're talking about here. Like, I just don't see them like complete utter shit. But I also see what they've done in preseason. They haven't looked that great, but you know, obviously Messi's also playing with his best buddies. The chemistry's there for them. He has Suarez, he has Alba, you know, and just in general the rest of the squad as well. Like, I think Messi cares about that team in general. So, like, I mean, I feel like there is more questions on us because there is things like, you know, will Peck start, or will Peck and Paint still play? Who's going to be our goalkeeper this weekend, which is a big deal because that's another thing we didn't really talk about. Like, I mean, we didn't really talk about that because it's just like, you know, they've been testing out all goalkeepers and we don't really know who's going to be the starter for sure. So it's like, there's that. Obviously, there's the defense as well. And so, like, there's still a lot of concerns for the Galaxy going to this game. But I do also agree that the Galaxy do like to show up in big games. Like, sure, this isn't El Trafico, but going up against the GOAT in your home stadium is like should be big enough where you gotta take it up a notch. You know what I mean? Like, so there's like, for me, like, I don't know where I see this Galaxy team perform. Like, I don't know how they're gonna perform in this game. Like, if they lose, like, I hope it's just a close game. I hope it's not an LAFC where they lose 3-1 in front of a bunch of celebrities. Like, I hope that's not the case. I hope they give a fight, but at the same time, like, if we win this game, like, that's a pretty big deal, beating the GOAT,
Yeah.
I mean, who cares about Selena Gomez and stuff? Messi's about to play in front of Insider Galaxy and Galaxy Central and Eli Lesser TV. So obviously, this is a bigger deal for Messi, and I think he's going to be nervous, and he might, shiver in his boots. He is the GOAT. He is the GOAT, but it's tough, especially when you have to go against, Ricky Puig, the heir to his throne, obviously.
Imagine he gets a red card today, and all the casual fans are pissed off. That'd be pretty fun.
That would be amazing. Has Messi gotten a red card in his career? Because I think he's
gotten it like twice in his career.
Yeah, because I remember he got like a yellow card last year, and that was like the most insane thing. Like, oh my god, Messi got a yellow card. But he lost his cool for a second. But that'd be great. Honestly, I don't even care. Like, it won't be great for the content I want to film at the match, but like, it'll be great for us if he can't play.
Yeah, I do want to see him play. Honestly, I can't lie.
Yeah, I do.
After watching him my whole life, I want to see him play.
I mean, let's say he doesn't play, that's a big W for the resellers who got to like sell their tickets for like $1,000. Oh, yeah. Like, can you imagine? Like, geez, that'd be a big W for them. But I mean, I kind of hope he plays though, just because like obviously it's Messi. But yeah, it'd be pretty wild if he doesn't play going into Saturday. But actually, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say some other things. Oh, I actually want to talk about something about Miami, actually, because obviously we talk about their roster. How are they roster compliant? Like, there's just no way that with all the weapons that they had and then all the players that they have, they're roster compliant. Eli, do you have at least some sort of idea or answer how they do this?
Well, I know which certain players are max TAM players and not DPs. I'm curious as to how much GAM they're actually acquiring in these trades. And, one thing that's important to note is they just sold Grigore, who is one of their, top midfielders pre-Messi era. And when you sell a player in MLS, when you sell a player out of MLS, you still actually gain general allocation money for it. You earn like some sort of ratio to what it was, what the transfer fee was. You kind of like switch it into GAM. I'm kind of confused as well. I think there's also, injury replacement players, players that, unfortunately Miami have lost a couple players for the entire season already because of that preseason match. And I think, that you're able to create general allocation money or cap space to replace those guys. So I think that's why they're able to keep bringing in new guys. But no, I'm just as clueless as everyone else. That's just like my best guess. And apparently they are roster compliant. Despite, what other GMs were saying about them being screwed. Apparently they are roster compliant. And we could believe it or not. We could believe there's some shady shit going on. But no, apparently they're roster compliant. So we just have to assume they are.
I mean, even if there's some shady things going on, there's no way the league's going to do anything right. Like, I mean, it's Messi. They're going to do anything for Messi, even if it's shady. Like, I just don't, like, it's just, I don't know. Like, they should have, like, obviously we talked about, like, they should raise the salary cap and things like that, give teams more money. Like, I think that would have been okay. But, like, when you see Miami doing all this spending, you just have this big question mark. It's like, well, how are they doing this? Like, there's just no way. Like, and I think they even signed a player recently, right? Like yesterday or today. I forget who they signed, but even then, it's just like, it's just kind of amazing to see that they do that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the truth will be told once, in a couple years, maybe they get sanctioned again. Maybe they don't because, they did it for Messi. So we'll see.
Yeah, so I have a question going into this game. So how are we feeling about the DPs not having a preseason? Do we think they're ready to play week 1? Do they need a full weeks of training and then go week 2 in San Jose and we go more on that game? Like, where are we at with the DPs right now? Because I'm just not really sure at the moment.
Joseph Painso is about to have his Laton moment. Really? You're about to come in immediately and just come off the bench and score an absolute heater. That's what I say about that. But no, I have no idea what's going to happen with the DPs, whether they're going to play or not. I'm hoping, Paintsill's been in LA for a few days already, and whether or not, he even though he wasn't officially announced till today, hopefully he's at least, been around the players and stuff, and at least, picking a thing or two up. Is Peck here yet? Is he here? Yeah.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Oh yeah, the plane. The plane. I forgot about the plane. So he might take longer than Paintsill. But it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Alex, like I could see this game just being a throwaway, and if we lose it, I'm not gonna think anything of it for the Galaxy. But if we win it, that just is gonna be
massive,
super sweet. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, definitely super sweet. Also, I think Painstill's a little bit easier of a process because I think he already technically has a visa because obviously he played in Belgium and stuff like that. They just need to convert his visa into a P1 is what I read. But Peck for instance is different because he's moving out of Brazil for the first time into another country, and then that's a different process to get his P1. So it's just more like for Painstill, it's probably an easier process. I don't know if I don't know if I see these guys play. Like I said, best case scenario, they come in as subs. If Paint still has a Zlatan moment, that'd be fucking amazing. It was funny because I actually told Alex before we recorded. It's like because he was saying the same thing. He was like, "How are they gonna play? Like, there's no way they play." It's like I don't know. They can pull a Zlatan. You never know. Like he came in like literally the next day. Like he can literally do it. So anything is possible, but no, I mean realistically, I don't think these guys are going to be starting this Sunday against Miami for sure.
You know what is good about our DPs right now is they're in shape right now. Like Peck was playing with the Brazilian Olympic team and getting starts with them and coming off the bench with them. Joseph Panstill was playing in Genk in Belgium, which is a really highly competitive league, and he was getting starts with them and training with them. So it's not like our DPs really need a preseason to get in shape. They need a preseason to learn their teammates, but as we always say, the best way to learn your teammates is by playing with them on the field, not by playing with them in training. So if we can get them on the field soon and they're in shape, I don't think their transition period is going to be too bad, especially if they have a lot to offer early on.
Yeah, and I agree with that for sure. It is crucial to get players that are in shape and already playing and in form. And I feel bad that they don't have an off season, but for us, it's great. But yeah, I do agree with that as well. Form and match sharpness is huge.
Yeah, definitely. So they'll be in shape for the game if they play. But we will do predictions, but we'll do season predictions. So I guess we can get into that right. We'll get into that right now. Of course, I'm just gonna list some categories here to see what your guys' thoughts are about it. So let's start off with MVP of the season for the Galaxy. Who do you see being the MVP, Eli?
MVP, it's still got to be Ricky Puig. Like, I'm very high on Panso. I'm still very high on Peck. I'm very excited to see what they do. But, Ricky, I think this is a year where he really, I think he's going to make the MLS Best 11 this year if the season goes the way I think it will, or I hope it will. So I'm going to go Ricky for sure.
Yeah. Alex, who do you see?
Yeah, this is Ricky Puig's team. They go as far as they take him. We're building around him. He's the guy. He's the player. Yeah, he's our MVP for sure if it goes well for him.
Yep, Ricky goes 3 for 3 because I agree as well. Ricky Puig is the MVP until he's no longer here. So he's going to be he is the team. Like that's just he is the team. So like everything revolves around him. So yeah, he's going to be MVP. Next one, Golden Boot. Who do you see getting the most goals for this season, Eli?
So I'm going to go with Joseph Paintsill. I think he will be the Golden Boot winner, and I think like I mentioned, he's, just as good of a shot creator for himself as he is for others. And I think, if not better. And I think, he might bag, 15 to 20 goals this year for us if he plays like the player I think he'll be.
All right. Alex, who do you got for your Golden Boot?
I am also going with Joseph Painstill because I believe he's going to play that Dennis Bouanga role for the LA Galaxy. Kind of be that winger, but also be that center forward, a goal threat. And I think he's going to be our leading scorer because right now I don't have enough trust in our striker positions.
I'm actually going to go different on this one. I got Gabriel Peck for this one. I just think I just see the young Brazilian who's coming off with his national team. And although there is still the questions about him, I do see the high ceiling for him. So I think Gabriel Peck is going to be the Golden Boot winner for this one. I think he gets the most goals. All right, then. Now we go on into Defender of the Year. Obviously, now this one's going to be tough because, I'm not too high on the defense. But who do you see as defender of the year, Eli?
I'm gonna go with Maya Yoshida, assuming he plays enough matches and can stay, healthy and stuff. I really liked what I saw of him at the end of last season, and I think, he is an important player for us. Despite his age, I think he still has a lot in his tank. And, one thing I want to mention about the Miami thing specifically is, sure, I'm not going to say, Yoshida's going to go out there and, take on Messi or whatever and dominate Messi. But I think if any MLS or any center back in MLS can, it might be Yoshida, just given that World Cup experience, the Bundesliga experience, the Premier League experience. He's seen it all, and I think he might have the best chance. Not saying anyone could stop Messi, because no one can, but I think he is our best center back right now, especially with Jalen out for an extended period of time.
All right. Alex, who do you got as your defender?
Yeah, so it's a close pick between Miki Yamane and Maya Yoshida, but I'm also going to stay on the same boat as Eli and say Maya Yoshida. He's rock solid at the back. He keeps himself in great shape. He still has that experience. He still looks really good, so I'm going to go with him. But I've loved what I've seen from Miki Yamane during the preseason. I think he's been outstanding so far, and I was close to picking him.
Yeah. Defender, I actually have Julian Aude. I have him as my defender of the year. I really think that now that he's, going to be the starter at the left back position, I think he's going to be good. I think even last year when he started getting those starts, when last year he was playing very well. He was actually, developing. I think just last year his development just took quite some time, but right when we got into that end of the season, that's where you got to see more from Julian Aude. So I think going into this season, he's going to be a lot better. He has a season under his belt. He knows what the league is like, and he knows his role and what he's going to do. And so I think that Julian Aude is going to be crucial for us, and especially just him being young as well. I think that's also another factor. So I have Julian Aude as my defender of the year.
Another guy who had a good preseason for sure.
Definitely. All right, then. So we got defender, breakout player of the year. Let's do that. Breakout player of the year. Who do you have, Eli?
So going off what you said for defender of the year, but I do think Julian Aude is going to be the breakout player of the year for the Galaxy in a way, because he might be the U22 guy. He's supposed to be good for us, but we didn't quite see maybe the level that we were expecting of him last year, and I think another year in MLS is going to really help him. And as you mentioned, with him being the solidified starter for the squad, I think if he could develop better his skills defensively and stuff, he's going to be a beast for us of a left back, and I think he will be much improved this year. So I think he'll be our breakout candidate, and it's hard for me to pick anyone else because I'm not sure, out of the young guys who's necessarily going to be playing a lot. So I think, with Aude, he's a pretty safe bet as long as he, takes that second year jump that a lot of, international players in MLS do.
Yeah. Alex, who do you got as your breakout?
Yeah, I agree with Eli. That's a really good pick. That's the pick I would also make. But I'm going to change a little bit from Eli. I'm going to say Edwin Cedillo. I think you talked about a guy who's not going to play that much. I think Edwin Cedillo is going to play a lot. When you see Gaston Brugman coming off his injuries, he's getting older too. I think Edwin Cedillo is a guy we're going to see a lot during midweek games, Leagues Cup games, hopefully U.S. Open Cup games. It's just a guy who I think is going to take a big leap for us and has a lot of promise in him. I still really like the trade. I was always really high on it. And I hope to see him take a really big year two leap with the LA Galaxy.
I like that one too.
I actually this technically isn't really a breakout because he already had a breakout. But I put Dejan Joveljic for some reason. But it's more like a comeback player, right? Because I think that like I said earlier in this episode, like with Greg Vanney now just focusing on coaching, I think he'll have I think he'll have a plan for Dejan to find that success again. And so I honestly think Dejan will have a bounce back season going into this one. Again, we got the weapons for him. We got, hopefully on paper, everything just, works well. And I'm going to bank on that. I'm just going to say that he's going to have a good season this year, and he's going to have a comeback, and maybe we won't see an insane season, but we'll see production from him, at least something to get us hopeful for Dejan again. Not what we saw last year.
Yeah, I'm just worried about Joveljic because Eric mentioned Chicharito before, and yeah, I understand Chicharito. He had a really hard year in 2020 when Greg Vanney was not the Galaxy coach under Barrios Schelotto, but the quality difference between Chicharito and Joveljic is pretty big when you look at what they've done in their career, and I just can't believe that Greg Vanney's going to have that sort of same success with Jovic. Like, sure, you could try to put him in better spots with these new players we're bringing in, but I just don't think the leap is going to be there. I just can't see it right now until it actually happens.
But in Eric's defense with this pick, we haven't seen Jovic break out as a starter yet. All of his, his best moments with the Galaxy have been coming off the bench, so that he could break out, as like a full starter. So that's why I would defend that pick. Yeah, if he can be there. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, next one. Most minutes. This one should be interesting. Who do you have, Eli, for most minutes?
So I think I did on another thing. I think I might have accidentally put Gaston Brugman because I thought he'd be ready, but I realized he's still coming back from his injury, so I'm gonna scratch that pick. This is a player that I don't think the Galaxy Galaxy fans are gonna love me to say, but I feel like a guy like Mark Delgado is gonna probably play the most minutes in a way. I think he's probably gonna, he's a full-time starter for now, and he's that type of guy that doesn't get subbed off very much in matches, where I feel like there's more situations where we might not see a Ricky, and still see a Delgado, whether or not obviously Ricky is miles better than Delgado, but he's just a guy that just happened to like be in the lineup every single match for he's solid. He's not great at all. But he's just someone that I just kind of see being in every 11 for us.
Alex, who do you got?
Yeah, me and Eli basically have the same bracket. That's my pick also. Because you look at the other guys, like the DPs, like they might be gone on international duty. You look at Jovic, if he's not playing well, he could easily be taken out. The defense is kind of old, like Yoshida and Cáceres. The goalies might be rotated a lot, so Delgado is the best pick, definitely. Or Yamane is a decent pick too, actually, because we don't have much right back depth. But I'll say Delgado because he's just so fit throughout the whole season. I think he's a good pick.
It's funny because Eli, you mentioned like the predictions you did. Because I was also part of that too. I put Yoshida for some reason. I don't know why I thought Yoshida would get most minutes. I mean, it could be a possibility. I mean, listen, like unexpected people get the most minutes. I think like last year Tyler Boyd had the most minutes. So it's like you don't expect a winger to have the most minutes because I think he played like every single game last season or whatever. So it's like, like I don't know, but like I do like Mark Delgado definitely for sure as the most minutes guy because you're right. Like like Alex said, the DPs could go on international duty. Injuries could happen, and honestly, I just think Mark Delgado last year being like injured was kind of like it just wasn't that season for him, but I think he's one of those guys who's always going to be there. I mean, he really is the workhorse of that midfield too. So like, I expect, I think banking on him to have the most minutes, is a safe pick. But Yoshida, I don't know why I picked that, to be honest. I mean, it could be a possibility. I mean, he is the starter. Like, I feel like between him and Cáceres, it's probably him, right? Like, I don't know if you guys would agree on that. No?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a Yoshida than Cáceres guy, and I think when Neil comes back, it'll be Neil and Yoshida. But time could only tell, and if Yoshida isn't playing well enough, then he might get benched. But I would bet my money on Yoshida remaining a starter once Neil gets back. I think he's what he showed me at the end of last season was really good.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see who gets those most minutes, though, at the end of it. Most assists. What do you got for this one, Eli?
Ricky Pooch! That's the category he's definitely going to win. I don't think he'll be our Golden Boot guy, but he will, still have probably the most goal contributions, I think. And, that's where Ricky's thriving, and I'm excited to see, him with other players, around him that could actually help. And, I think him being fully healthy and everything as well this season, it's just this has to be Ricky Pooch, right? Like, I don't know. Well, I wonder what Alex is cooking, but I'm going with Ricky.
Yeah, Alex, what are you cooking? What's your most assists?
Yeah, I'm picking the same thing he is. I'm also with Ricky Pooch. Like I said before, the offense is at Ricky Pooch's feet. He's given the keys to the offense. He's the one who's always pulling the strings, playing through the gaps. He has really good vision, one of the best passers in MLS. So I think definitely him. But if I'm going to go a little bit outside of him because we all know he's a great passer, I'm going to say Gabriel Peck. I think he's a great candidate too.
Yeah. I guess Ricky went 3 for 3 again because I have him as my most assists as well, and for exactly the same reasons as you guys says. He's a great passer, always finds the spaces. I think it's like I don't see anybody else, to be honest, for getting those most assists.
Amen.
All right, then. So finally, the last category, which is going to be the most interesting category because not only just fans, but also the MLS pundits, the MLS analysts were everywhere when it came to this category, and that is where the Galaxy will finish this season. What is their position? So, Eli, what do you got for this one? I know you said earlier in the show, but what do you got for this one?
Yeah, I might be too optimistic for the Galaxy, but if you're not a homer, I don't know what I was going to say at the end of that quote, but, I'm a homer, and I think if the Galaxy play at their absolute best this season, which I'm hoping they do, I think we have the squad to be fourth best in the West.
All right, fair enough. Alex, what do you got for your position?
Yeah, Eli, it's been a hell of a run. It was good going through the bracket with you, having all the same picks, but this is where it comes to an end. I have the Galaxy finishing 8th in the Western Conference. I think it's going to be kind of like 2021 a little bit, where in 2021 we had a big piece of our organization coming in Greg Vanney, the coach. Now this year we have another big piece in the organization coming in first-year sporting director Will Kuntz. I think it's kind of one of those transition year agains where you can't really have expectations too high because it is a first year with a bunch of first-year new players. But also, you want to perform better because you did spend a good amount of money and you think the quality of players you have now is better than what you had the previous season. So, yeah, I just think 8th, they'll have some good games. They'll have some games where they fall off. I don't think the Galaxy personally are going to start the season very well, but I think in the spring they can have a resurgence, and the summertime I think they might close the season bad too. But yeah, just kind of like the typical Galaxy team, like in 2018, after they had a bad season, they were just right there at the end. In 2021, when they had a bad season in 2020, they were right there at the end. I just think, again, they're just going to be right there, kind of in the mix again. And if they can make the wild card game and host it, it's not too bad, at least. It would be okay, considering the season we had last year, for sure.
I mean, before Eric, you go, I'm hoping that we could be more like the 2022 Galaxy, where, yeah, I'm expecting a not so great start either, but hopefully we could go on some magical run, late summer heading into the playoffs. That's, I think,
the 12-game
best
2022 Galaxy. That team was so good for 12 games.
Yeah, I think that will be like the best case scenario for this team, where they might struggle a bit, but then they go on some insane run again, and that's maybe why I said fourth, because that's what we were then, but I'm hoping that we could get back to that level again.
It's fair, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, position was very tough. And I think it was tough for a lot of people, like I said, for fans and for all the experts and everything, because there's a lot of things that are, remain questioned, I guess, for this team. Obviously, when it comes to on paper, for the offense, if Dejan does what he was when he was a bench player, and Gabriel Peck and Payne still become the guys that we hope we are, I think that offense is going to be, electric. I think they'll be good, on paper. Midfield, if they stay healthy, with Ricky Puig, Gaston, and Mark Delgado in there, if they do what they had, I couldn't even speak. If they were what they were in 2021. Sorry, I couldn't really speak there. If they perform like they did in 2021, that's what I meant to say.
22.
Or no, 2021 when we went on, or 22. Yeah, sorry. Jesus, I'm all over the place. But if they perform well, point is, like they do together, the chemistry. I think that'll be good for the Galaxy. But the question remains for me is just the defense. This is where I have the biggest question marks. This is going to be the biggest, negative for the Galaxy, and it's going to bite them for sure this season. I don't think we really improved on the defense. I mean, yeah, we replaced Caligari with Yamane, so a good right back with a good right back. We got Johnny Nelson, which is an upgrade in the depth for the left back position. But then you look at the center back position, where obviously we know all the issues. You have Mavinga, you have Zavaleta. And then, as Sasha Kleshton said it for his prediction, you're at least right now for your starting center backs, it's a combined year of 75. They're two old center backs that we're going to have to start this season. So it's defense is a big question mark for me. Obviously, goalkeeper as well. We don't know who's going to be the starter. It's just that's going to bite the Galaxy in the ass. But if the Galaxy do well in the offense and the midfield does what they do, then I see them at 7th, to be honest. I see them in as a middle of the road team, and they make the playoffs. That's the best case scenario.
Well, I'll say this about the defense right now. I feel very good about the fullbacks right now. Like, I'm a big Julian Nalde guy. I really believe in him a lot. Like you said, Nalde has more of a role this season, had a season under his belt. I'm very confident in him. With what I saw with Yamane in preseason, he looked really good and very promising player. And for the goalkeeping part, I don't really think it's a problem right now. Like you said you don't know who's going to start. I think John McCarthy's the solidified starter for the first couple of weeks. I think this preseason, he's really separated himself from Bon and Mikovic. So I think those three areas are fine. But the center backs, you are totally right. Like, we're just simply put, at center back right now, we're kind of screwed. We're too old with our two good players. They're just too old right now to go a full season. And your center back depth is just not good. Mavinga and Zavaleta are not good MLS players anymore. And you're not going to point fingers at Will Kuntz for that because he's not the one who brought him in. Imagine if Will Kuntz had those two salary cap spots with Zavaleta and Mavinga gone, what he would bring in. He could bring in like a Johnny Nelson or an Edwin Cedillo type player. Instead, he's unfortunately stuck with Mavinga and Zavaleta, and that's extremely unfortunate right now.
And there's a ton of good third center back options out there that aren't that expensive to acquire within MLS. So I could see us pulling the trigger on on a player on at least one before the window closes, but I'll believe it when it happens.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I guess we were kind of all over the place with our predictions as well when it came to position. Well, actually, me and Alex were kind of similar. You had him at 8th, I had him at 7th, but yeah, I mean, 4th is, I hope for 4th. I think that would be a very, very successful season for the Galaxy for sure if they get to 4th place. And they do have that run like we did in 2022. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll just see. There's still some questions to be answered for this team, but there's also a lot of optimism for this team going into the season with all the moves and the with Will Kuntz and everything. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I always say on this podcast, we only hope for the best,
We need a t-shirt of that, honestly.
We really do. We need to make those t-shirts. We only hope for the best. But yeah, those were our season predictions for this season. I know we kind of went through all the categories, but any other predictions you guys have for this season?
For the Galaxy or just in general?
Just in general. Or actually, since you obviously cover MLS, for MLS, what are your predictions here? What do you see for the season?
So the Western Conference for me is a crapshoot, and I mean both conferences, just any team could really make it out of it. I think the East is way stronger than the West, so I think that could work in the Galaxy's favor this year in a way where I feel like my Western predictions are less solidified than my Eastern ones are. That being said, unfortunately, I still think the West belongs to Seattle. I think they're probably the strongest team in the West heading into the year, and even they showed a lot of signs of weakness last year, but I think they're probably going to be our toughest opponent. Obviously, El Tráfico is always going to be a tough one, but in the West, I think, Seattle's a team we have to beat right now. And then in the East, I went with a bit of a sleeper team to win MLS Cup and they're from the East. I went with Orlando. I think, they're building upon a very successful season last year. And I think they'll have kind of the rise that Cincinnati had from 22 to 23, but from 23 to 24. So I would keep an eye on Orlando for sure as a sleeper team, especially with all the Miami hype. I think, there should be more hype on the other Florida team.
Yeah, that's some good predictions right there. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the West is always going to be tough, right? I mean, I feel like I always say the Western Conference is just it's always. I feel like it's harder than the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. At least from what
in general, though, it's not harder. It's a hard league in general to really try to make strides in. Really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. It's competitive. That's why we watch this league. That's why, we cover a team from this league because it's always very competitive. So, yeah, I mean, anything can happen in MLS. Really, anything can happen.
There's no Man City in this league for sure.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I hope LAFC doesn't become the real city to our United. Yeah. But
luckily, there's a salary cap, so there's a level there.
And that's what's the beauty of MLS. That's why, we like this. A lot of people like the league and find it intriguing. It's, any team can win every year. It's not boring. Where I know the Bundesliga is a terrible example this season because of what's happening there. But, it's not like a Bayern's going to win every single year. We've had like 9 champions in the last 15 years or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but something like in that where we've had a ton of different champions, and I think it'd be if not the Galaxy winning MLS Cup this year, I would love to see a new MLS club a team that hasn't won a championship win an MLS Cup this year, which is why I went with Orlando. I would love to see something like that happen, and have that team not be Inter Miami.
I mean, we were the last MLS team to go back-to-back, so that really tells you it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, 10 years. 10 years since our last trophy. So,
Hopefully that ends soon.
Hopefully that ends soon. Who knows? Maybe that's this year. But, I think that's going to actually do it for the episode, of course. Can't thank you enough, Eli, for coming on. I mean, obviously, like I said, it's the fact that we haven't had you on here sooner is a crime in itself, but we're glad that we actually got you here for this episode and for the season opener. But tell the people what you got going on with your content, anything new that's popping up, what you got going.
I've always been a huge Galaxy guy, and Galaxy will always be number one in my heart and always be the team I cheer the loudest for. But also I've recently gotten involved with Orange County SC. So if you want a USL team to root for and you hate Chris Klein and what he did for the club and what he tried to do to Orange County, and you might want to feel sympathetic for a USL club, root for Orange County SC as well out there. But in general, I'm just trying to figure things out, make my way in this space, but also I'm just super thankful to have such a strong community around me, especially at the LA Galaxy. I feel like I'm just, I could just be myself, when I'm with Galaxy fans and, at the tailgates and stuff, and, not having to, have some sort of filter on me. And it's super great. And, I love being a part of supporter groups with the Galaxy, and no matter where life takes me, the Galaxy's support that I have, it means the most to me out of all the support. And I just, can never thank Galaxy fans enough for, having my back as well.
Yeah, we're always going to have your back. And especially because you make amazing content for, everything you do for the MLS community, for the Galaxy community. You're a G. I mean, that's just the best way to put it. You're a G, bro. So it's like, we can't thank you enough for that. So yeah, I mean, obviously, hope you have a great season. Hopefully we all have a great season. Let's make the most out of it for this one. But if you want to follow me on social media, go follow me at Insider Galaxy on Instagram, on X. Go follow the Galaxy Central on Instagram. Go follow Eli basically everywhere. Like, you're like everywhere whenever you're on X, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube Shorts. It's like all your content is everywhere. So, if Eli pops up, go follow him wherever he's at. So, but yeah, thank you guys. Like I said, let's hope for the best this season.
I'll have one more thing to say, though. I didn't even speak yet before we close. All right, so I agree with you. I agree with you guys. I hope we have a great season. I hope the Galaxy have a redemption season. We get healthier, we get our DPs in, they start clicking, and then we go out there and we finish some unfinished business. But we have a redemption season. I think that's what we're all looking for. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we all hope for that as well. But I definitely agree. But yeah, be a friend. Tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to the podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. Have fun at the game if any of you guys are going. And if you guys are watching at home, obviously have a good time there too. And yeah, let's go fucking get it. Let's go get that. Let's go get that W. Yes, sir. G's up. Have a good one, everyone.
7 words.